Welcome back. It's your boy Jay, and this is the Digital Revolution podcast. And it's a little bit of a late night kind of a post, but I thought it would be interesting if we go over Lynette Zang's interview with Kitco News. Kitco News is like one of the best news outlets, I think, out there. They focus on gold, and Lynette Zang is also a gold person. She works for ITM Trading. She is the godmother, the godmommy, if you will, of gold. She is another one of the OGs of economics and finance. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of go over what she says, maybe not the whole entire interview, but just kind of going over some of the things in the interview. So let's see what we can get into today, or tonight, should I say, because it's pretty late. So let me see here. Let me see if I can pull that up. Just give me one moment. Let me pull this up here. And let me see if I can pull it up. Bear with me, guys. We're going to be getting into Lynette Zang. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. And one of the best.
As the US and Europe grapple with a burgeoning banking crisis and brace for more potential bank failures, the de-dollarization trend is accelerating, led by the BRICS countries. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa continue to...
Wait a minute, let me stop that right there. De-dollarization trend accelerating. Oh my. Yeah, the BRICS nation, we got here Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They're just not fucking with the US, basically. But let's continue. Again, this is your boy Jay, and this is the Digital Revolution podcast, and we're just doing a little nightcap, going over what Lynette Zang just did. She is one of the best, guys. That's why I'm going over this. These are historical posts.
Move away from the US dollar. China and France just completed their first liquefied natural gas deal settled entirely in Chinese yuan. China and Brazil have reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the greenback as an intermediary. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping recently met with Russia's President Vladimir Putin, with both vowing to significantly increase international trade in yuan instead of dollars. Both leaders advocating for the use of the yuan in settlements between Russia and Asian countries, Africa and Latin America, and calling for a new era and, quote, changes that the world hasn't.
I'm just going to pause it right there. So the BRICS are de-dollarizing. There's something going on with these G7 nations and all the friends of the G7 nations. I mean, like Australia, France, the Anglo-Saxons and Britain and the US, they all represent the G7 nations. And there's something going on with the G7 nations. Basically, we have this proxy war with Russia being fought with Ukraine, but really it's a war between the G7 nations, or really the US and Russia. They're using Ukraine as a proxy. And well, as you see here, as Kitco News is reporting here, you got this alliance between China and Russia. A lot of this is in the Bible. Not saying this is verbatim in the Bible, but a lot of this is predicted in the Bible that, you know, super alliance of Russia and China would get together. But I don't want to go down that tangent today. But really, we're just kind of just reviewing Kitco News and reviewing what Lynette Zang is saying here in this news. But let's go a little bit further.
Seen in 100 years. So the world's second largest economy and its largest energy exporter are together actively trying to dethrone the dollar. Now, the trend towards de-dollarization has hastened follows Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the weaponization of the US dollar through sanctions. In August, the BRICS nations will be discussing the development of a new reserve asset to rival the US dollar, as well as the possible addition of new members to the alliance, including Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now, China recently brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran to resume diplomatic ties, Meanwhile, Saudi Aramco is building a $10 billion oil refinery.
Mind you, Aramco, sorry to cut Michelle off, but Aramco is like one of the biggest corporations on planet Earth. It was formed by the United States and the Saudis, and eventually the Saudis now control it exclusively 100%. So I think it was 50-50 where the United States, that's why it's called Aramco, because it was American and the Saudis that owned it. But eventually now, now the Saudis own it 100%, but it is one of the largest corporations on earth, if not the largest corporation. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is sitting on trillions of dollars of oil. But let's go further. I'm not gonna do the whole entire interview. It was over an hour long, but I am gonna just kind of go over some of the things that I thought were really interesting. And again, this is a late night nightcap review with Kitco News, one of the best news sources, and Lynette Zang. Let's go a little bit further.
Very complex in China, adding further speculation that the end is nearing for the petrodollar. And of course, this is all happening as the state of the US financial system is looking increasingly unstable.
Hold on a second, let me see something. I hope I'm getting this. I hope my screen is sharing this shit. Anyways, moving right along.
Well, joining us to unpack these developments is Lynette Zang, Chief Market Strategist at ITM Trading. Lynette has almost 5 decades of experience in the financial sector, including as an investment bank.
She's the fucking best. She's the queen. The only other one that can really touch Lynette is I'm talking about them like as if they're rappers. She might as well be, right? She's just as famous as any rapper now. But the only other one that could touch Lynette is Catherine Austin Fitts. And I would love to see Catherine Austin Fitts and Lynette Zang. I don't even think they would debate, but I would love to see them just kind of come together and have a discussion. Maybe this channel will do that. I don't know, fingers crossed, but that would just be insane. Again, I believe these people are going to be historical figures. But let's continue on. I'm not going to do the whole entire interview, and let's just see what she has to say.
At Lawson Lehman and American Express. Lynette, very good to have you back with us.
I'm happy to be here, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, we need you to help us unpack all of these developments. There is a lot to discuss. And in fact, so much has happened since we last chatted, which was late January, including, of course, the big developments that the second largest and third largest bank collapses in the US history took place, Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank.
Yeah, that has been all over the news. These banks have been collapsing left and right. Basically, these banks had some bad bets, some bad investments that went down. Due to COVID, everybody works from home now. So all these commercial real estate buildings are going down. It's like 50% unoccupied, at least here in New York City. So they have a lot of bad bets. The bond markets, they were into the bonds. The bonds are all messed up as we went into the first episode. But let's continue on. Again, I'm not going to do the whole entire interview, but hopefully I could just get to some of the salient points. But thanks for watching. Again, this is your boy Jay, and this is the Digital Revolution Podcast. And we're just kind of going over what Lynette Zang is saying. So.
Now, federal regulators have been on Capitol Hill the last few days trying to explain exactly what happened to lawmakers. But why don't we get started with your take on exactly what happened with the collapse of SVB and Signature Bank?
Well, they look in.
I just wanted to make a note before she goes into SVB. Allegedly, I heard from the Solera report, but this is again Catherine Austin Fitts, that SVB was doing something with biometrics, with biology, something to do with biotech, nanotech as well. I think that we should kind of maybe elaborate on that further, but let's hear what Lynette has to say.
In the 90s, they allowed investment risk-taking banks to merge with deposit-taking banks. I haven't heard one person talk about removing that link anymore. They just talk about more regulation, and they talk about, oh, bringing back Dodd-Frank, except that they only had 70% of it written, and that doesn't mean that it was actually put into service. So I think a lot of that is just a lot of jawboning. This is about bank profits. And when you see the fact that the head of SVB sat on the board at the San Francisco Fed, and then we are wondering why the regulators weren't in there more aggressive, well, I kind of think that we can see.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, first of all, those regulators are shady as fuck. Look at what this guy Bernie Madoff. The motherfucking regulators was down with Madoff. They knew about it. They were asleep at the wheel. The regulators are fucked. And this relationship between corporations and government, embed together, that is the very definition of fascism. Whenever you have corporate sector with the government sector and they are in bed together, that is a form of fascism. Just saying.
Why that's true. And also the fact that he sold a whole bunch of stock shortly before SVB went down. But the level of leverage and that bailout. Now, they don't want you to think that it's a bailout because they say, oh, taxpayer money wasn't used. And they keep talking about the DIF fund, which is the FDIC's fund to pay out depositor insurance, but there's only 128 billion in there. And the Federal Reserve behind everybody's back, and I haven't heard one other person talk about this, I mean, as far as on any of these meetings or even ask this question. But
again, this is your boy Jay with the Digital Revolution podcast, and it's a nightcap, and we're just going over the Kitco news with Lynette Zang. Hopefully you guys are following this. I'm not going to do the whole interview.
The Federal Reserve actually went to the Treasury and borrowed $184 billion, gave $148 billion to the FDIC, or loaned it to them, to the FDIC to bail out all of the depositors in Signature Bank and SVB Bank. So in 2008, they bailed out the banks. But who did they bail out this time? Venture capitalists and technocrats.
I was telling my friend that this SVB bullshit is basically like corporate welfare. Like the government is nationalizing all the banks, but they're underwriting these multimillionaires that were in this bank, SVB. I even heard Oprah Winfrey was in this bank. These are people that have high net worth. They're mostly, we're talking about SVB now, SVB Bank, Silicon Valley Bank. They were mostly techies, people in tech, too big to fail. And well, they made risky bets. Being in a bank is an investment. It's a bet. You're betting on the bank. The bank failed. However, the government stepping in and saying, hey, we're going to bail you out, but they're not really helping the average person. They're helping these multimillionaire wealthy people, these elitist people at the top. And people need to take note of this. And that's why Auntie Lynette, if you will, is the best. She's the best. But let's continue.
Technology companies. Who do they need to help them bring out the central bank digital currencies? Oh, they need venture capitalists and they need those technology companies. So as they are systemically important, but there was no oversight on it. I mean, they've been dismantling Dodd-Frank and any oversight since Dodd-Frank was really written. And let us not forget that what was it, 20 or 21, we went into a no reserve requirement system. So the banks, so that they have more to trade with, because that's how they're generating so much of their income.
So she was talking about the CBDC, which is the central bank digital currency, and that is just a whole nother shenanigans. But listen, guys, we don't want this shit. We do not want CBDCs, but I think that CBDCs is already here. For instance, if you're on any kind of welfare benefits, if you're on any kind of social security benefits, you essentially have a form of CBDC. However, the CBDC would essentially be funded by the federal government and not the state. But there's already CBDCs. I think that CBDCs will just be integrated into people that are middle class, that are kind of coming down on the economic bracket, where you see this disparity in wealth and income, where the top percent are getting wealthier, but the middle class is coming down. I think that you might see CBDCs integrated with them, because the poor people are already on EBT. They're already on welfare benefits. That is a form of CBDC. The money is directly funneled into their welfare benefit checks through EBT cards. So it is a form of CBDC. So it's already here, but it's just, once they fully integrate it, it's not going to be CBDC, it's going to be something else. But that is another rabbit hole in itself that I'm not going to get into. Just hopefully I explain it enough to just briefly brush it here. And my little bit of views on that, that I think that we basically already have CBDC. If any of you guys are on welfare benefits, or if you collect Social Security, any kind of, if you have any kind of state card that they just wire money directly to you from the state. In this instance, CBDC is from the federal government, from the Federal Reserve itself. So let's see what Lynette has to say.
They have absolutely no reserves set back for a crisis like we're going through. But, so there's a lot in there.
A lot in there, and you've just given me just a lot just in that one first answer, Lynette. I want to circle back because I'm watching the CBDC angle very carefully. So you're saying that you think that there was an incentive to bail out Silicon Valley Bank intentionally because you believe that some of the players there may be important to the technological rollout of a potential central bank digital currency?
Damn.
Yes, I do.
But this is speculation. Or is there any link?
Okay, speculation, like she's not 100% sure, but probably she's right.
Particular companies or people that were bailed out that are.
I mean, if you live in the United States and you're hearing this should make you upset. These people basically got a corporate welfare. The federal government just printed some money, the Treasury helped bail out these rich people, and oh yeah, here's a welfare check for you. That's socialism.
Actively helping with some of the technological processes that perhaps are being looked at or laid down.
Well, considering that it's the technology companies in Silicon Valley that got bailed out, I don't have necessarily a specific name. However, yes, I mean, it makes sense. It's logical. They're systemic, and they had a lot of, 97% of their deposits were uninsured deposits.
Yeah.
They got bailed out at 100%. Kind of reminds me of when we bailed out AIG 100%, and their counterparties on those derivatives were Goldman Sachs, all the usual players. So
now the derivatives is a whole bag of tricks. Basically, they're just synthetic currency. They're not even currency. It's synthetic liquidity, as Egon von Gress has taught us, that these derivatives are just contracts on contracts. Most of the derivatives are contracts on the interest rates. The derivative is a derivation of an underlying asset. It's actually an underlying something physical. It's something actually underlying the derivative, but however, there's contracts on that underlying asset, and the banks can control those contracts. So they have multiples of that underlying asset, and the banks trade amongst themselves, but off the books of the bank. So basically, a derivative is just, as Egon von Gress has taught us, it is synthetic liquidity. It's how the banks trade, so they can have extra money to trade, but it's all just a debt at the end of the day.
No, I don't have a specific name, and it is my opinion. I cannot prove that, but logic kind of is there.
I just wanted to clarify that point, because Lynette, so often you do actually have very concrete data to back up everything that you're saying. So I just wanted to clarify that this is more a sense of intuition, which is something to be taken seriously as well, but not necessarily any precise data. And there's been a lot of speculation as to why SVB in particular has been bailed out. I mean, some have even argued that a lot of the donors to the Democratic Party were involved in that particular circle of people.
And they want to arrest Trump and all these motherfucking Democrats. Now, I can't say all of them, but you know, the majority of them are just corrupt. Both parties are corrupt. They're all corrupt. But they want to arrest Donald Trump, but yet they're openly like criminal. Does that make any fucking sense? It's crazy.
Banking at Silicon Valley Bank. You're saying potentially it's because the technology companies may be involved in this idea of a central bank digital currency rollout. But again, that's purely speculation on both counts. But what is not speculation, what we do know for a fact, is that up until then, the FDIC insured everything up to—
Okay, so I'm not going to go over there, but we're going to go skip it and go here to the engineered, oh, what was that? Yes, right here. Let's go to the engineered financial crisis.
All right, well, I'll tell you what the public will see, and that is if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised. Because as we move to SOFR in June, as we have the FDIC borrowing these billions of dollars from the Treasury, which was a bypass of getting the debt ceiling raised in that particular case, but we do have that debt ceiling deadline looming. And if Congress doesn't agree on raising the debt ceiling, then there could be a government shutdown. We have a very, very divided Congress at the moment. So how do you anticipate that happening? It kind of seems to me like you have a perfect storm of events which spell trouble for the financial system and spell trouble for the US dollar.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. And that's why I say when you look at the choices that are being made, they're really destabilizing on so many levels. And when you stop and think about the fact that it took more to bail out 2 banks than the entire fund to bail out all of the banks, you know, you're starting to see a picture. But this is why I say I am not convinced that they're trying to even kick the can down the road.
And you're saying, again, that this is by design, that this is—
It could be.
And I've had guests on the show echoing a similar sentiment. And I always like to say that there is the expression, I've used it before on this show, don't ascribe to malice what could be explained by stupidity or by inefficiency. But you're saying that you believe that this is now by design creating a chaos in order to bring down the system.
Yes. Because there's virtually no purchasing power left officially. There's virtually no purchasing power left in the currency, and they can't raise interest rates, which is their key tool. And they've given away, I mean, you know, this.
No purchasing power left. Yeah, there's only about 3 cents left to the dollar. And in a few more years, it will go to 0. No wonder why all these countries are de-dollarizing.
Blew me away when I saw them do it last August, which is not that long ago. It's not even a year, when they gave away the market confidence in the central bank, that the central bank had their back. And what are the global central banks saying, whether it's here or it's in Europe, is that the central banks are more concerned about fighting inflation, which of course they never say the inflation that we created and caused, but they're more concerned about fighting inflation that they—
Sometimes I think, like, what is behind all of this? Like, these people go to bed, the people that are behind all these financial issues and all this collapsing. I mean, essentially, Lynette Zang, she does elaborate more on who really is behind it in terms of the people that are driving this issues, like the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, World Bank, World Economic Forum, like those as being the bad guys. Those are the antagonists in this 100-year cycle of the dollar, 170-year cycle of the dollar. And sometimes I think like that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to perpetuate this, to perpetuate this agenda. And I think that it's just pure greed and pure evil, just pure greed and pure evil. But it just makes everything, what's the word? It makes everything seem more artificial. The relationships that we have, the things that we do, it's all like fake in a way because the money's fake, the system is fake. I think pretty soon people are going to wake up, and once they wake up, and they may not go to work anymore. But let's see what Lynette has to say
about the markets, which I don't really necessarily believe, but I think that they're fighting for some semblance of credibility. And okay, sometimes it could just be stupidity, but doesn't it kind of seem like there's stupidity in every area?
There is only so many. There are only so many missteps that you can start to explain by just sheer ineptitude. And again, going even back to some of the moves on the geopolitical stage, which I want to get to as well, which kind of also tend to make people question the value of the dollar, which is ultimately backed by the full faith of the US government, and people losing faith in the US government on the global stage also seems to be a big problem, as we touched on before. But before we get into that, on a very small micro picture in terms of the immediate future, what do you expect from the Fed? You're saying that the Fed does now somehow want to maintain faith with the public. So would that mean another rate hike?
They may just do it in their arrogance. They can't raise it too much. What are they going to do? Maybe.
Okay, I'm gonna fast forward the interview to kind of the end. I mean, this is Lynette Zang. She's one of the OGs of microeconomics, and she's a gold and silver lady, and she's one of the best. She's a knockout. She's top tier. Kitco News is top tier. Both of these ladies are top tier, and I'm just so privileged to just even have this information. We are really privileged to have this information. These are historical posts, but I'm just going to skip right now. Hopefully you guys are following me. It's your boy Jay. It's the Digital Revolution podcast, and we're just kind of going over what Lynette is saying. This is a little bit of a nightcap. It's really late right now, and I just decided to just go over this, see what we can get into. So let me just skip here, and let's see what she has to say here. Hold on one second. Commercial. I'm not going to play the commercial. I don't really do that.
The respective governments, and they've used that piece up.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I can see it and the way that I reconcile it is this isn't just a US issue. This is a global issue. And in order to push the agenda, they need a big enough crisis to get people just to follow along.
Right.
And, it justifies everything. If there is a big enough crisis, if the global banking system implodes, and remember, we are all interconnected in a rather incestuous way. So it doesn't matter where this starts. It isn't really just a US thing. This is a global thing. And we very well could be cooperating inside of this too, and not even realizing it.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Lynette is saying. And I said this in episode 2 of the podcast, or was it 2? I don't remember, but the next crisis could very well be that the blackouts, that everything just goes dark. There's an EMP strike, and they've been talking about an EMP strike for years now. I first heard about EMP strikes from, I don't know if you guys ever heard of a program called Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. And I've been listening to Coast for years now, but that idea was introduced to me from the Coast to Coast AM George Norrie radio show. And basically an EMP strike, all the electricity, all the power is just out, and it could take days weeks, possibly even months, possibly even, I don't know if it would take a year, but it'd take a very long time to get the power back on once the power is down. And that has huge implications. Mark my word, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but it could very well happen where the power goes out, all communication is down. You can't call 911, you can't go to the hospital, or maybe you can go to the hospital, but there's no power. Hopefully they have backup generators, of course. And that's why people like Lynette Zang is telling people to get prepared and to really be prepared for anything. You know, you should prepare your families and tell your families to prepare for anything. The system could go down. You can't get your money out of the ATM. The ATMs are not working. The banks are not working because the power is down. And they might just say that, oh, we got hit by such and such and so and so. So that I think that is a real possibility. I'm not saying that it is going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen. That in order for them to go into the next phase of whatever the government or whatever the central banks and the elite and the 1% of the 1%, whatever they're going into, they want to black us out so they can possibly go into a whole CBDC program after the blackouts, because people are going to be desperate. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about that.
Well, you could argue that the US is trying to push a central bank digital currency because US leaders foresee the de-dollarization trends unfolding, and the hope is that a CBDC could more easily retain its value as the digital version of.
Okay, let's skip. Again, this is a great interview with Lynette Zang and Kitco News. Let me just skip a little bit, let's see if I can get here.
As in the current global system, there's an infinite amount. Governments can continue to grow debt as long as the public has confidence in their system. And then what that does is it shifts the wealth. So we could very well be agreeing on some level that we don't even know exists. I mean, we being the public really understand that that's happening behind closed doors. But the whole world has to go into a new system. This system is used up.
I hear you, Lynette. On the upside, though, recently, there has been growing awareness of central bank digital currencies, which to me is a big relief because I've known about this for ages and I've been absolutely.
Hell fucking yeah. Hell fucking yeah. No way do you want these CBDCs. Again, but I personally think that they already exist. If you collect any kind of a check from the government, you're basically getting CBDCs. Any kind of social welfare program, but it's just the state giving it to you. But where's the state getting the money from? The state has to get the money from the taxation, and they have to ask the federal government for the money. So,
Shocked and horrified that people that I interact with socially, arguably intelligent, well-informed people, hadn't even heard about a central bank digital currency or the idea that it's so potentially close to becoming a reality in the United States. I mean, that's even after
hell fucking no. Hell fucking no. Hell fucking no. We don't want this. Hell no. Say no to CBDC. But unfortunately, like Greg Manarino has said, he said something to the effect that people will tend not to protest because so many people are on welfare. What are they gonna protest? It's complete control. That okay, so basically there are disparities in the income, and as inflation goes up, the average consumer cannot handle the high consumer prices. So a lot of these theories go into the idea of people being co-opted into the state, that people are kind of being forced onto welfare because the jobs are not paying enough. We went over that the average American makes over $50,000 a year. The average, $100,000 or less, that puts you in the top 10%. Not even they can afford the high interest rates on the mortgages. So what I'm trying to say is that as that inflation goes up, people are getting priced out of the market and they start to default. So then they have to knock on the government's door asking for help. So they're kind of co-opted into the government. So they're kind of already co-opted into it. they're already getting the CBDCs. It's already here. But I think that CBDCs will have to be something that they're going to have to transform and rename it so that it's more sexy, I guess. And they're going to push it for the middle class, because as the middle class comes down, because they're not going up, they're coming down, as Lynette has said, that the purchasing power has gone down. So the purchasing power is going down, especially if you are a millennial. Your purchasing power is going down. You're getting co-opted into the government or co-opted into socialism. It's already here. The CBDCs is already here, but they're going to have to integrate it to the middle class, is what I'm saying. They're going to have to find a way to sell it to the middle class, because the middle class, they're not on welfare yet, but CBDCs is like a form of welfare, because essentially the Federal Reserve is wiring money directly to United States citizens. And I hope I'm getting these ideals across. These are very complex ideologies, and I'm not an economist like Lynette Zang is. I'm just a concerned citizen. But let's see what the Queen has to say.
Order 16047 that President Biden signed into law in March of 2022. But okay, thankfully, we are now seeing some pushback on the mainstream stage, and there is some pushback from politicians, at least in
I like this part, which she goes into
the United States, against all of this. For example, we've had House Majority Whip Congressman Emma push back with the CBDC Anti-Surveillance Act. He said he wants to make sure that there's oversight over the Fed before any kind of digital currency is issued.
Hell fucking yeah. Hell fucking yeah.
That any digital dollar must uphold the American.
Okay. Any digital version of the dollar must uphold our American values of privacy, individual sovereignty, and free market competitiveness. Yeah, because there are no free markets if the Federal Reserve can day trade with money created out of thin air. I mean, it's just lunacy. That the whole system is built on a lie. It's the Matrix, and
values of private individual sovereignty and free market competitiveness. We also had Florida Governor Ron DeSantis come out recently and say no CBDCs in Florida. South Dakota's Governor Kristi Noem has spoken out against CBDCs.
Nice.
Senator Ted Cruz recently introduced legislation to prohibit the Fed from establishing a retail.
So some of the states can be like, fuck you to the Federal Reserve or fuck you to the federal government, and can act independently. And thank God, this is good. This is a good sign, but who knows? They might got something else up their sleeve once the power goes down.
Saying that it is a threat to privacy, to economic freedom, and warning how a CBDC can in fact be an Orwellian tool of surveillance and control. So with these signs of resistance, is this in fact inevitable, or is there a way, either through legislation or perhaps protest, that we can still prevent this?
Yeah, there is a way that it can be prevented. And like I said, you vote with your purse. You vote with your wallet. If you stay in the system, because let me tell you, you may have protests, but big enough crisis, all those protests are going to be silenced if they can be convinced that this is going to save the day. It's not. It is going to bring us into a full surveillance economy.
CBDC.
And the other thing that I did want to also say, because you brought up...
Scary, guys. It's scary. CBDCs is another scary thing. And it just makes me think, like, who are these people when they go to bed? They're thinking like, oh, we need to surveillance the whole entire population. Like, it takes a lot of fucking energy. Listen, either these people are not human, or they are other than human, or there's something other than, because what human does that? Like, if you got all this money, wouldn't you just want to chill and relax and do other things? I mean, it takes a lot of energy to be evil.
Really good point is that if enough people do this, then the government, if they buy gold.
Okay, so yes, so Lynette is saying that, gold and silver is a way to take your wealth outside of the banking system, because from what I understand, what I learned from all the greats is that once you convert your worthless pieces of paper, so almost like alchemy. Once you convert those worthless pieces of paper that are going to zero, now there's only 3 cents to the dollar, 3 cents to the dollar. Once you convert that into gold and silver, and you take it outside of the system, the government can't see what you're doing. They don't know what you're doing. However, I think that Egon von Gress has said something to the effect of that there's only 0.5% of the world's financial institutions are invested into gold and silver. So if you start getting all of these big institutional investors into the market, it's going to be, as Mike Maloney said, unobtainium. You won't be able to get it. It's only 10% of the cash, or there's only 10% of cash in circulation. The other 90% is digitized. So everybody's going to start taking their money out of the bank. Eventually, there's not going to be any money. Everybody starts buying gold and silver. Not everybody's going to be able to buy the gold and silver because eventually it's going to run out. So, yeah, you need some gold and silver, but I think that it's not the end all be all. And that's why Lynette has created a channel called Beyond Gold and Silver. But maybe we can get more into this a little bit later, but let's hear the lady speak.
Then the government is gonna more than likely go in and confiscate. So it matters what kind of gold you buy, because if you buy what everybody else out there is buying, that's the kind of gold that is likely to get confiscated. But yes, if we all come together and we say, okay, we're not buying digital currencies, we're not buying stocks or bonds or this or that.
Lynette calls all of those things that are other than gold and silver and maybe some commodities, Lynette calls it how do you say, intangibles. It's all just on paper. Everything on the stock market is just paper. All the bonds, annuities, all the paper currencies, it's just promises. It's just IOUs, it's contracts. But these contracts are starting to fail. And so you're going to see all these institutions and people in their 401ks, once they see that the paper is failing, that the intangibles are intangible, they're going to start rolling into gold and silver. However, there's just not enough. I mean, there are some gold mines, but there's just not enough supply demand. And again, maybe on this channel, we can get deeper into this. And this is exactly why I created this channel for. Again, it's your boy Jay. It's the Digital Revolution Podcast. And hopefully I'm getting this message across. Please like and subscribe. We're just going over my girl, Lynette Zang. She is the top tier gold and silver lady, really, I should say gold lady. And she is the best of the best. And Kitco News is also one of the best sources of information. And we're just doing a little mini review. Hopefully I'll be able to publish this. But let's hear what the lady has to say.
Buying gold, we're buying silver, and we're taking possession of it. This is what they can't control. Because of the probability, because I agree with you. I mean, history tells us that, and even current history is telling us that the most likely outcome is if the government feels threatened by people buying gold, that they'll take it away. So buy it in collectible form.
People should be like outraged with their government. I mean, it seems like there is no solution. There is no solution other than to just let the motherfucker burn. Just to let them destroy themselves, but they're going to end up destroying us in the interim, because a few people, and I was talking about this in some of the other podcasts in the earlier podcasts, that really, according to people like what's his name, he wrote a book called Giant, but according to this book, and I hopefully I can get the book. I think it was not Philip K. Dick. That's another author, but it was a Philip something. He wrote a book called Giant. In this book, he explores who these people are. There's only really 300 people that control the world, or at least the G7 nations. But a lot of the governments are acting in the same type of way, including China. So what is really going on? Who is who on the international stage? Nobody really knows. Obviously, Russia and China are forming a bond with each other, forming an allegiance with each other. But do they really trust each other? You got the Biden administration allegedly with ties to Ukraine and money laundering. You got the Biden administration with business dealings with China, and they want to arrest Trump when these Democrats, this administration is openly criminal. Just saying, allegedly, because I don't want to offend anything or anybody. necessarily don't want to talk politics, but I'm talking politics. I don't know how that makes sense. But yeah, let's hear what she has to say.
Why would that make a difference?
Well, it has historically, and since what the governments would use to justify it, just like the bail-ins, going back to the bail-ins, then they can take whatever they want. They just have to pay fair value, the eminent domain laws. So they control the spot.
The eminent domain laws, meaning the government has the right to confiscate your property, but you can sue the government for that. But good luck with that. Scary.
Market. They don't control the
government has too much control and power. And I think one of the solutions to this, and this is something that I learned from Catherine Austin Fitts from the Soleil Report, and I advise everybody that, go on there before they take it down. Just Google it. You can Google Catherine Austin Fitts and Soleil Report. Catherine says something to the effect of, one way to solve this problem of big governments is transparency. If we understood and knew more of what the government is really doing, particularly with the money, they would not do it. However, the government legislated a law called FASB 56 that basically states that United States citizens, the sovereign citizens, cannot look into the accounting of the government. So we cannot ask the government for a deep internal forensic audit of the government's accounting and where all this money is really going. Nobody really knows because the public is we cannot know. And again, hopefully we can explore more of these topics. And again, I'm referring to FASB 56 and the fact that we United States people cannot knock on the government's door and be like, hey, can you give us a itemized breakdown of what the government is spending this money on? Allegedly, they're spending it on the privatization of space and the building underground bases. Because something big is coming. And the reason why I wanted to do this particular podcast and what Lynette was saying was about the crisis. So really, this is why I'm here. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution podcast. And I'm just going over the interview with Lynette Zang. And I really wanted to hone in on the crisis. What is the crisis? Nobody knows what the crisis situation is. Is it going to be nuclear bombs? Some people say most likely not, because they don't want to destroy the wealth of any nation. They want to keep the wealth intact. So either they're going to do it through a virus, maybe, or they're going to do it through an EMP strike. But definitely the World War III, as Lynette has stated, is being fought financially. But let's wrap this up and see what she has to say.
Physical market. The collectibles are a physical only market. And you've got 1 ounce coins that can go for $15 million or more. So eminent domain laws wouldn't really quite apply.
I just wanted to, sorry if I'm cutting this off, but I just wanted to circle back on eminent domain laws. I do have my real estate license. And one of the things that I learned in real estate, I'm a licensed realtor. And one of the things that I learned is that we don't own anything. The government owns everything. The federal government owns everything. If you don't pay your property taxes, the government will take your property away. So who really owns the property? Who really owns the property? Something to think about. We don't really own anything.
So easily to the collectibles as they do to the bullion. Bullion is easy to do. You manipulate it, you give them a bonus, let's say it's at $3,000 spot is at $3,000 when they decide to confiscate. They say, hey, we'll pay you $4,000. Do a huge sweep of IRAs, depositories aren't going to go against the government. And most people not understanding that that's still not the true value will go, wow, look, it's only worth $3,000 and they're giving me $4,000. Okay,
I wanted to circle back on what she's saying about the true value of gold. Now, some people like Bill Holter, like Jim Rickers, I don't want to misquote them, but what is it? Anything below $40,000 an ounce of gold is considered undervaluation. It's considered cheap. Anything that is below $40,000 for 1 ounce of gold is considered cheap. think about that. I mean, and again, this is sort of speculation, but it makes sense when you really understand the gold valuation and really understand what gold is in order for them to reevaluate the debt, in order for them to pay off the debt, they would have to essentially raise the value of the gold. The paper price of the gold would have to go up in order to pay off all that derivative debt, to pay off all the global debt. The price of gold would have to go to something like $100,000 an ounce. And I'm not saying that it is going to be $100,000 an ounce, but Lynette is kind of talking about the true valuation of gold. What is the true value? We see on the computer screen that it's trading at something around $1,900, but that is considered undervaluation. That is still undervalued, and that the central banks and the banks like JP Morgan are suppressing the price of gold through the derivative contracts. And again, this is very interesting, very deep and detailed, and I hope I'm getting this across about the true valuation of gold. That you see that gold is it's $1,900 an ounce, but that valuation is considered cheap. Anything below $40,000 is considered a steal. So think about that. So if you have that 1 ounce of gold and it goes from $1,900 to $40,000 an ounce, I mean, but again, as we learn from, people like Lynette Zang, people like Egon von Gress, people like Bill Holter, who hopefully I will do a video very soon, you do not want the gold to go that high. If you want the gold to be at a steady rate, steady rise, you don't want it just to go up, because if the price of gold goes up, as Lynette says, it's an indication of a failing currency. If the gold is going up, that means that the government is collapsing. People do not trust their government, and you don't want that. If the price of gold and silver is going up and up and up and up and up, then we have a whole nother set of problems. Okay, hope I explained that well.
But they do, that's the way they do it. And then they reset this garbage that has no intrinsic value, and they do it against gold that's all intrinsic value because of its broad-based use.
Well,
So,
yeah, no, and Lynette, again, we pointed out last time we chatted that central banks have made record purchases of gold last year than ever before. But
isn't that crazy? I think that is just so fucking crazy. And hopefully I can get deeper into this, that as it says, as Michelle here is saying from Kitco News, that the banks, and I think it was last year in Q4, that they bought more gold than they have in any time in history. So something is definitely going on, and you should do what the central banks are doing, they say, if you can afford it. But yeah, let's see what she has to say, and then we'll wrap it up.
someone would say, okay, Lynette, you're in the gold trading business. You have an
I think that's good right there. Let's just wrap it up there. Let me stop sharing my screen. Again, it's your boy Jay. This is the Digital Revolution. This is episode number 3, and we're just going over Lynette Zang and the Kitco News. Is kind of a nightcap right now, kind of late in the night, kind of a midnight type of a thing. And I just wanted to get this out there. Hopefully, I'll be able to post this on YouTube. And please like and subscribe and share, and feel free to watch the whole interview on Kitco News. I think they have an excellent source of information, and very soon they could take all this information down. Very soon the government is going to say they're going to pass some law or legislate some kind of a law that says that the information that they're giving out here on YouTube is illegal. It's just crazy, guys. It's just crazy. It just goes on and on and on and on. And I think, again, going back to some of the solutions is transparency of government. Now, I'm just going to wrap it up on this because this video is already probably way too long. But that Catherine Austin Fitts from the Solera Report, and please, guys, just Google her, type her in, Catherine Austin Fitts. She basically created an app that you can download the app on your phone or whatever, and then you can see exactly how the money is being spent in your district, in your county. You'll be able to see where the money is going to and the money flows. But the government didn't like that, so the government shut her down. And Catherine Austin Fitts said she spent about $10-11 million trying to get the federal government off her back, and she wrote a whole online book about it. I think it's called Dylan Reed and the Aristocracy of the Stock Market or something like that. Really good sources of information, and I hope I'm getting this information out there and I'm doing it in a clear, easy way for you to understand. Again, I am not an economist. I'm just a concerned citizen. I do have my real estate license. I do have other licensures, but I'm just a concerned citizen, just like everybody else. And hopefully I can break some of this information down, because if I can understand it and explain it, then I think anybody can understand it. So guys, like and subscribe. Stay blessed. Love your loved ones. If you have somebody in your life that you love, just love them. And just love is the answer at the end of the day, and only God can save us. Okay, everybody have a blessed and beautiful night, and see you in the next episode.